up, squishies? Briefly say hi to you in the big face mode so that you can see my great set. Because I think this is the first Berserk stream with a new set. Welcome to my home. Hello. Why is this the last stream, guys? Well, we'll talk about that in a second. It's not guaranteed to be the last stream. We'll see if it's the last stream. We'll see. We'll see. We'll talk about that. Let's cover the elephant in a room, right?
Did you just say cover the elephant in the room?
No, in a room. We'll cover it in a room.
This is literally the opposite of what you're supposed to do with the elephant.
I think the elephant's supposed to be in a room. We got to get him in there. We got to room this elephant. We got to build a room for the elephant. We got to get the elephant in a room.
Oh, build a room for the elephant. Yeah, let's do it.
Around the elephant. Enclose the elephant in a room.
I'm in.
It's a small elephant, though. It's like an Indian bush elephant. So it's not like one of the big, it's not an African savanna elephant. It's an Indian bush elephant. It's the smallest elephants almost. Basically, we have been warned that the next section may be so horrible that Mama may not want to keep up with this, that it might be too brutal. So I am going to be reading ahead and giving very moderate spoilers, we think, to see if Mama wants to engage the next section. What do you think of this plan?
I said to laugh today, I'm okay as long as animals don't die. And then and then Lav said, ooh, yeah.
Ooh,
might be a problem. And I was like, what? Maybe I'll be okay if they show that funny little snack with the silly hat again. That was
the snake with the silly hat cannot make it all worthwhile. Look, guys, with how this section went, the next section can only be horrible.
Yeah, we knew that. As soon as we both read this, we were like, well, this isn't going to be good.
What comes next can only be the worst. Okay, people think it's a good plan for me to read ahead and give you
People think it's a good idea
spoilers.
For you to spoil me. That's not
that tells you where we're going. That tells you where we're going if people think you should get spoilers.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I think that says a lot.
We're in a different zone now, friends. We're in a different zone.
When before would people have said this? Which section did you read? At the ending, the Black Hound, the Black Dog mercenaries, were about to be sent after our friends Casca and Griffith and Guts and Pippin and Judo, who everyone loves.
Wait, does everyone love Judo?
Everybody seems to love Judo. I've only met one person ever who doesn't love Judo. Genuinely, one person ever.
Yeah, who's that?
That's crazy. I don't know.
Oh my god! Does Judo get killed in the next section? Maybe it's worth reading.
Probably. Okay. They'll all get killed. Judo's gonna get killed. Pippin's gonna get killed. Casca's gonna get killed.
It's gonna be so bad. I can feel it. I can actually.
They're all gonna die.
Feel it being the worst ever.
I mean, Rickert saw everybody who's not one of the important characters get like swept aside, like brushing an ant off your leg. That's the game we're in now.
Kill the little kid was my question. Like,
why'd we kill the little kid?
Why didn't we?
Why didn't we kill the little kid? I mean, he might have died. We don't know what happened after that moment.
That little kid just did nothing. He just stood there, and I was like, I'm pretty surprised you guys are just not eating him. I mean, he's such a wafer-thin wafer. Gonna throw some points Pippin's way. Thank you. Pippin is, you know what Pippin is, Rafe?
What?
Pippin is not Judo.
Judo's great.
Yeah, if you like Judo, I bet he is.
You see Judo kill two guys with throwing knives out of nowhere while everyone sneaks past, and you're like, show off.
Did you just say show off?
Yeah. Should we start talking about this section?
Have you agreed to my image?
I mean, yeah, it's happening.
Yeah.
We'll stab the horrible little man.
In my defense, it's the most cathartic picture.
Yeah. I will say out of all the cathartic murders in this series, which there's a good number of, one of the best ones.
Yeah, I would agree. And even though, can I just say, the person he was torturing is not my favorite person.
It's just like you put that much sauce on it, and yeah, you deserve that.
Yeah, I don't like how happy he was to kill people.
Wait. While I got a captive audience, let me really detailed go through why this was such a good experience for me. Legal permission to do so. So actually, nothing here was unethical. Anyways, I really loved cutting tendons.
Everybody wanted me to kill him. You wanted me to kill him, but I didn't. I let him live. Why? Because I could heal them and cut more tendons.
Yeah. So then I started to skin the guy.
Oh, that was not cool. And then when he died, when he's like, you can't get through this door, so just be happy I'm telling you a story.
Couldn't help but notice that you got through the door. That wasn't allowed, actually. That's against the rules. I love that dude Like, hey guys, if someone tells you something's unethical and your justification is ever actually legally this is allowed, just remember that when they started to get mad about torturing Griffith to near death, this guy's first statement was, whoa, 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 the king let me do it. I just want you to remember that something being legal is never an ethical defense. Never.
How do you feel about judo?
How do I feel about judo? Love him.
Ah.
See, what I love about judo is judo looks at a situation where someone is doing something that is emotionally taxing to them that they are going to make a mistake with because of where they're at, and knows his friends well enough that he recognizes where someone needs to be supported and have the mental load taken. So he is willing to step in every time. I think that's great.
You know what I love about him?
Is it that he's about to die?
He's available for a future murder.
I think judo's kind of the Sean of Berserk.
At first I thought he was the Usopp, but I eventually really liked Usopp. Maybe I'll like judo when he dies. Maybe that'll give me a good feeling towards him. We both went back and read the last couple of chapters of the last section we did.
Which is weird because we did it independently. We both on our own were just like, yeah, let's reread the end of the last section.
I wanted to see the snack because I wanted to see if I was wrong about the snack because people were like,
you wanted to see the goofy snake.
Yeah, everyone was like, that snack is really scary. I was scared by it. And I was like, it was the goofiest looking shit I've ever seen. So I went back to see if I was wrong, and nope, I still giggled out loud. It just a big round head with a party hat on, but that's okay.
Hear me out about that snack.
Okay.
He's kind of got the energy of like if Jim Henson was really big.
Oh, okay, yeah, I could see that.
Imagine a really big Jim Henson is puppeting him.
Yeah, I could feel like he could be like kind of a scary Fozzie Bear's best friend, kind of the way Big Bird had Snuffleupagus, but we all did it. We're supposed to pretend we couldn't see him.
Gotcha.
Okay, here we go. Boop, boop,
okay, what's up?
We wake up.
What's happening?
We're in a forest. We're naked.
That was true. That did happen. All of that.
They have a whole little naked fight, and I was like, "Oh, this is a nice little very vulnerable open moment between this couple. That's nice. This is a nice little moment." And what I should have then known is that it was going to end the way it did.
Yeah. Oh man.
It was just like, oh god. So they have the argument. She's super like they're so vulnerable in this moment because when they wake up, they're just having their little moment, and I was thinking how crazy it is that she's like, you know what, it's probably basically because of the fact that you were sexually assaulted that made you so angry and hard in the beginning. And I was like, oh, you're just gonna say that.
We're just gonna say it out
loud.
And then she's straight up like, that's probably why you didn't like people touching you too. And the fact that she just goes for both of those is crazy. You don't expect people to. I love that Casca says emotional, hard conversations in a way you never expect characters to just directly confront.
Yeah. I was like, okay, Casca, I see you. I see that you're just laying it out there so that you guys can converse about it. That's very adult.
It's such an appealing part of her character that she just like takes on difficult emotional topics so bluntly.
Yeah, and so they have that conversation, and I was like, good for you. But then she gets really pissed off and upper smacks him with leaves in the face because of his, I'm just gonna peace out now, broham.
I need to pause again to say that someone says, as a lifelong Berserk fan who read it when I was 15, 31 now, Drawk reading ahead's the right choice. That's crazy, dude. Like, most people I know get through it. Handful of people, including my older sister, was like, nah, I'm good, not for me.
Wow. I'm actually genuinely.
It sure is a shame Casca's about to die because she is such a good character.
I love Casca. I can't believe this is going to happen. I am absolutely devastated by it. We predicted a long time ago, but predicting something and seeing it are very different.
You knew, spoilers, you knew a character was going to die in One Piece. Like literally, I think 5 or 6 of our streams before it happened, and it still broke you so bad that you took a month off.
Oh god, it was so upsetting. I'm not over it yet. Every time somebody makes a donut joke, I want to quit talking about it. So this was really important later on, which is kind of like a story.
I think we talked off stream before this. I think starting here is right for this reason. Go on, yeah.
So she gets all upset. They talk about how he doesn't want to go on, and then it flips into the babyhood of Griffith. He's running through the town. He's having difficulty. He's collecting items, and he immediately says that ever since he was a small child, he knew that he was destined for something bigger and different. And I think some people feel that way when they're kids, like, I'm destined for something huge and da-da-da-da-da.
And he was right.
A lot of people do feel more comfortable in just saying, like, no, I'm destined for this. This is who I am, and I feel comfortable in this situation.
And it was so important that we both accidentally reread the last chapter, because this is back to back with the old man talking about his journey and how he felt he was destined for blacksmithing. How before he could know about wanting anything, he wanted to improve. He hadn't thought about wanting something other than blacksmithing. So the first thing he was able to want was to improve, to hone a better sword, to make a sharper blade. And Griffith here, the exact same way, is saying the first thing he knew to want was the brightest treasure. Looking up at the fucking sky and seeing the sun, he was like, that's for me.
And we talked about how that actually can either be two incredibly different people talking about life in a different way, where one is really comfortable with finding purpose in the life they have and in the thing they become, and one of them is like, I seek something so much bigger and more grand. But it could also just be some people are meant for greatness, and that is the thing they need to get comfortable with. Just like the sword maker, the blacksmith, was meant to be a blacksmith, and he talks about how it's the spark of his destiny. And then we looked at Griffith, and we were talking about how it could be the same coin, and Griffith is just on the side of the coin that wins bigger prizes and loses bigger prizes, and the blacksmith is on the side of the coin that finds comfort in the life that he was born into. And how cool that is.
It's so fucking compelling, and it's so hard. I want you to think, if you're a writer, I want you to think about how hard it would be to write two characters who, without ever pointing it out, both act as a perfect foil and opposite to each other, and work as telling you the exact same lesson at the same time. And then to layer it being even more impressive as a writer, add on top of that Casca is somehow acting like neither of them at the same time, acting as a foil and a comparison for both of them, as Casca has previously said, yeah, I am going to reject my humanity and become my purpose, a sword like you two, and now have grown to say, why can't we just live? Why can't we just be people? Casca has become a woman again, and not in the way of, oh, she was a man, but in the way of, this is a series where we see people be not human. Woman and man are human identities. Sword is not. Casca has stopped being a sword, become a woman, become a person, become a leader, and is now in a position that she did not see as her purpose in many ways, both as Guts' lover and as the leader of the Hawks. She is something other than her purpose and just living. She is entirely different than them, but she's somehow the same as Griffith because she seeks a greater purpose than the moment, and she is somehow the same as the man because she has accepted her place instead of seeking some great dream. Imagine making three characters who in a quick succession like this are perfect comparison points and foils, and like have this boiled similarity to them. That's so fucking impressive.
And then to make it be seen through a fourth character, Guts, who sought a destiny, didn't feel a destiny, has been running through life trying to create a destiny, saw himself for a while as Griffith, then saw himself for a while as this blacksmith, and saw in Casca this soldier who chose that and realized that he needs to choose a destiny. And so because of Griffith, I think that we were able to see all three of those characters to their fullest capacity because of his journey, because of Guts. I think having Guts in there as a person who was looking for his destiny in a different way and in such an open way with us this entire time has really let us look at the way that all of these people are so similar and yet so different.
Yes.
Okay, we get to go into a cool place now, though. Like, you and I talked about this earlier, but the fact that nobody in the anime gets to see the beginning that we saw as readers is fucking wild, because we know to hate Griffith, but not only that, we were talking earlier about how we are comparing a man whose soul was taken over by the devil, who became an absolute horror show, ate people, etc., still refused to sacrifice his daughter in order to live forever. And yet, here we are looking at Griffith, and we know what a piece of shit he becomes, so we know that he just gives up on his people and intentionally sacrifices people who had such deep meaning to him.
And I think you could, if you had not read the manga, you could so much more easily say, well, Griffith, of course he's going to, because he couldn't move or speak if he didn't.
Yes.
He would be like this forever. However, you've been forced as a manga reader to see a man you know is evil, a man you know to be a bad guy, the Slug Dad. You know Slug Dad is bad, and yet you see Slug Dad.
Wait.
Yeah.
We both agreed that out of the dads of this so far, Slug Dad is the best dad.
When you read it, as you're in the moment, you know he's a bad guy. You know he's a villain. You hate Slug Dad. You know he's a villain. You know he's a bad guy. And yet you see that when push comes to shove,
wins Dad of the Year.
He wins Dad of the Year because he is offered, hey, rule in hell as a god forever and kill your daughter, or be condemned to have your soul ripped apart by demons for an eternity and your daughter can live. And he chose the latter. And you can say, oh, but look at how bad Griffith's situation is. He'd have to give up on his dream and he'd have to be crippled forever. Okay, well, Slug Dad was able to look at that and say, yeah, I would rather literally have my soul eaten for an eternity than sacrifice my daughter. Oh, wait, exactly. Slug Dad's number 2 dad. Goto the blacksmith is a better dad.
Be the new dad. Whoa, let's have a round of applause for the blacksmith being just a normal dad.
Yeah. Okay, Slug Dad's the second best dad in Berserk.
I'm so excited. I mean, the bar is low. The bar is so low.
Ambino was our bar setter, and he did not set a high clearance for dads.
Yeah, when you sell your kid off as a you really are just like, how low can I make the bar for dadding?
Hey, Lav, are you looking forward to bleeping things out this episode?
Oh, yeah. I think that if you hadn't read the beginning and you had just seen the anime, you just wouldn't understand. You would watch Griffith fall into despair, fall into madness, be tortured for all this time, and you would think like, this makes sense and people are being hard on Griffith. This only came because of his circumstance. But after Dad of the Year number 2 showed us what it looks like to stand by your principles after eating children.
To be fair, eating other children, eating other people's children.
We know that Griffith is actually a bigger piece of shit than Slug Dad, which is a pretty big thing to do. Like, it takes a lot to become that bad. But this descent into madness of Griffith in there with just like the way that he decided to do the art, a gradient shading with a bright spot in the center, a lightning bolt moving across, one eye, a hand. And then the lightning bolt coming across, only him, like lightning on the dark night. He rises up within me blazing. And the way that we see that all the ways that he sees Guts through jealousy, through longing, through hope, and how Guts becomes his only touchstone in the darkness. Come on. So I'm wondering, like, I know something terrible is going to happen. Obviously, apparently some dad reading this turned into a puddle of hopelessness. Nobody has seen him since. He's finished Berserk and now he's done. But
vanished from eternity.
He's vanished for eternity. But I'm wondering how he didn't have to give Griffith up, or if if Guts' suffering and being hunted is part of his giving up, if he was supposed to not just kill him, but actually torture him in this way.
So someone's asking how I'm feeling about Griffith Apologists at this point, and I think I'm feeling a very nuanced way about it. And you can cut in where you disagree. I'll speak to my point, but I think this is important at this point as we continue, because we're about to go into how Griffith has affected everyone. This entire section is about the ripples of Griffith.
Did you just say the ripples of Griffith?
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I think we should put that up on the title.
So here's what's up. Griffith is written to be a takedown of the values of a protagonist. He is meant to be an exercise in examining that there is an inherent selfishness to seeing yourself as so important that your ambitions come above everything else around you. We are shown that in many, many ways. Guts right now is a man who is trying to become a protagonist without knowing what that means, without knowing he's in a world of narrative. But this is in a world where there are gods who basically use humans for their narrative. They manipulate people. We see through this section people saying they're doing things that they don't understand that they're doing, that they don't feel like they can do. Charlotte especially is seen as someone who's changing and someone who is doing things she doesn't understand. I feel as though that is God's hand pushing people's wills to use them as players in a narrative. Griffith is a protagonist. Guts is the protagonist. And that distinction is one of the most interesting things about Berserk. I think as a consumer of media, you are trained to accept the protagonist's drive, the protagonist's will, as an inevitable fact. I think the media you have consumed has taught you that the protagonist is right to pursue their ambition at all causes, at all costs, because that is what drives story. The story exists because of their drive, because they are built to accomplish something. And this is a story that's meant to show us how kind of vapid that is, how self-indulgent it is to see a world where anything could happen and see only your path, only your vision forward as the relevant thing. I think it makes perfect sense that people would be bought in by it. Now, I think that the distinction comes pretty easily. If you read the manga, you are shown someone who is able to turn down their path that has been set forward by God. God allows free will in this world. There is a pressure on the scales, for sure. There's a finger on the scale, but you have free will. We are shown a bad man choose suffering over his dream, over his ambition. And I think that alone, and knowing that Griffith will not make that choice, is enough to entirely change how you read Griffith. I think that bias we have towards trusting protagonists would motivate us to be an apologist for Griffith if we didn't have that opening. I think you'll see far fewer people who read the manga versus watch the anime be a Griffith apologist, because if you see the horrors that Griffith has gone through and you haven't shown the objective fact that you are allowed to give up, that it is okay, that you don't need to accomplish what you see as justice to be good, to be redeemed, to succeed. I think if you didn't see that, that blinder you have on of trusting a protagonist would make you feel like he had to make the choice he's going to make, that he had to do the horrible things that we know he's about to do. However, if you read the manga, the series has told you that isn't the case, that the protagonist is not inherently virtuous, is not inherently justified in pursuing their goals, and that you should rather give up than cause suffering to those you love. That's how I feel about the Griffith Apologist. Do you have any corrections there, or do you feel like that's pretty salient?
I think another thing that the author is trying to do here is he's trying to show how even some of the most insane, outlandish actions can be justified by a person who's trying to reach a specific goal, and that they can justify in their mind why it is that they believe it's okay. And they can say, like, it's an act of utilitarianism. Like, every single person is their own judge. You judge what is good and bad. Therefore, where do you come off telling me whether this is good or bad? I can only judge myself. And then there's a kind of egoism where it's you maximize your own self-interest, whereas some people are more on deontological, where they're thinking more like the greater good. Like, you can have your own actions, but you also have to think of the greater good of humanity. And I think that Griffith and his character, the reason some people feel okay apologizing for him and thinking that he's okay, is because their own moral and ethical framework has taken them to places where they understand how sometimes you can make really shit choices because you think you're doing it for the best way. The same way, like, the path of good intentions leads to hell. That while you're trying to do these big things and these great things and have this huge band, that all the things that you're trying to be and do can end up landing you in a shit place where you start to make bad decisions on behalf of everyone. And before you know it, you're the bad guy. And once you're already the bad guy, now in for a penny, in for a pound, you just start doubling down on your choices. Whereas Guts shows us how hard it is to make the other choice. Because in the end, Griffith is the one standing there with the power of hell, fully healed and strong, while Guts is being attacked and persecuted and traumatized on a daily basis, trying to do the right thing for the right reasons, no matter what it does to him. And so he becomes cold and shut down and looks like a less friendly and interesting and approachable human being, but it's because the responsibility of doing things for an ethical reason and in an ethical way ends up wearing his soul down and his ability to be a person.
Then we have the other issue where Guts, to try to stop Griffith, has been forced to basically become him, where the dark mark means demons are chasing him, and choosing to continue to live instead of surrendering and dying is killing people.
Exactly.
Guts is causing harm to everyone around him. He has been forced to become Griffith. How do you skip the prologue? The series is made.
Yeah.
I know that the
It
betrayal
blows my
this
mind.
stings more.
In philosophy, we be doing moral and ethical frameworks. While I was reading this, I was thinking about how this series and this story literally moves through all the different frameworks at one time or another. It has all the different types of frameworks, from thinking from egotistical to thinking all the way outside to everything in between. Every one of the different frameworks, including the ones where we're talking about God, everything is answered in here. And I started to wonder, like, how into philosophy was this person? Because I feel like he literally listed the frameworks of moral and ethical relativism and then said, like, okay, let's go.
It feels incredibly salient as a philosophical read. And like, God, just thinking about I just think about how unique this is in the world of manga. Because I said it before, that manga is such a crushing industry that usually so much emphasis is put on your drive, your dream, your ambition is inherently worthwhile, and giving everything you are and everything you have for what you believe in is wonderful, is a gift. And yet we see a brief glimmer of celebration at the bonfire of dreams, of seeing how it's okay to want a normal life, of how it's okay to be doing something you don't want to do, to build the finances, to build the stability, to have a regular life, a peaceful existence. We see things like the blacksmith be at peace, having never chosen his path. And we see things like Casca in what I think is one of the most beautiful, somber moments of the series, talk about how she could just live with guts, and how both of them still want to be mercenaries. It's not like they're done with violence, but because it's all they're good at. They are two incredible soldiers. They're not going to have another life, but that they don't need that life to be a pursuit of some great dream, that they can just be them. And how rare is it for an industry that cooks people so desperately and only holds up those who get. And this author has to be more of a Griffith in how they live their lives, because they're a mangaka. He died young, having burned himself out, putting everything into telling a story, which is what mangaka do. And yet he understands that there may be a sickness to that mindset. He still tells us that there is a piece to embracing normalcy.
I think there's a couple of things. Like, he doesn't just say there's a piece to, he is championing normalcy. He's saying that the people who are content in their position are the people who are the luckiest and lead the best life.
Yeah, it's kind of Buddhist.
He's also saying it is a choice, because dude might have been born into the blacksmith world, but he chose to stay in it, and he chose to become amazing at it. And more importantly, he chose to love it. As I was reading this and looking at how he goes through all the moral and ethical frameworks, I was like, he wants us to be horrified at those moments in ourselves. And some of us will end up apologizing for it, because we've all done or said things, and then we've been like, ooh, that was really just for me. That's really about me and my climbing and my happiness. And yeah, it's important that we protect ourselves and we create our own lines. But some people take it that extra step sometimes too far. And I think that he wants us to feel that way. And then some of us end up apologizing for him more, and some of us just hate ourselves for it.
Oh, that's...
Either way, you learn something. Either way.
Can I just say that, like, I love reading this series, but I think even more than Undead Unluck for me, this series is improved by discussion and discourse.
I would agree. This one requires discussion and discourse.
Yeah, all of the nuance and depth to this series, there's so much more you can access by talking about it.
So his editors actually came out to say that he didn't burn himself out for the last 15 years of his life. He took really good care of his health. The first 20 years is when he was in an insane grind. That's
still awesome, though, that he was able to, like, look at this and say, hey, I'm going to take it chill. I know I won't produce as much, but I want to live my life. Like, he basically was able to take Casca's offer and say, hey, just live and love. And I think that's really beautiful.
Oh, and we are all given Casca's offer in different ways. Hey, like, I was thinking about, even though Casca's offer was like such an offer of love and relationship, and I was thinking in so many ways we are all given Casca's offer when we're told, like, hey, do you want to come off the crazy train and just kind of go on this path with me? And how many times people are like, oh, I think I'm going to Griffith this. And I think, like, that's a real highlight, because not only is Guts giving up Casca's offer, it kind of also gives up Casca's peace, because then Casca doesn't get to have the peace of the person she is meant to be with either.
Oh, man, this is such a well-told story. It's such a shame about what's about to happen to us.
Oh, God. I can't even.
Like,
I can't even.
It's gonna be so bad. It's gonna be so bad.
Okay.
Oh man, dude.
So
Oh
seeing
man.
Griffith in the basement going nuts, I loved how they showed. Do you remember how excited we both were by the Guts coming out with all the swiggity swag when he had on his wicked cloak and his cool hat?
Yeah.
And Griffith saw him and Guts had just done his bidding, and yet somehow Guts seemed like the one who was cooler, more in control, and just like in the lead position there.
He was reobtaining the protagonist status.
Yes. And then what does the author show us in this next thing when Griffith is in the dungeon perseverating on Guts and what he means to him and how he thinks about him? That one little moment that we both said, oh, this is the switch.
Yeah. Oh my God. I didn't even know. I didn't put that together. You're right.
It is such a cool thing that he's in the basement in a dungeon thinking about this moment. And there is that exact moment where it's like, blip. And now it's the Guts show, buddy. And then he ends up unraveling himself. Guts ends up becoming this bigger than life character, traveling, trying to find who he is, going on his own quest, separate of everyone, and comes back, and Griffith is a shell of the man that he was. And Guts literally plows through the entire dungeon rescuing Griffith. So Griffith is just absolutely 1,000% at the whim of Guts. And that is just like, what a full circle moment there.
It's so cool to see because like so much of this series has been about Griffith accidentally making Guts the protagonist. Like to the, oh my God. The meta narrative is so beautiful because remember what I said about how Guts became Griffith because he's now hurting people to keep on going on his quest to kill Griffith. Yeah. He has fully put all of the onus of protagonist on Guts, turn him into protagonist, given him a dream, given him ambition, made him the person with agency, made him the one who rescues Griffith, given him all of the power. Including what the narrator sees as the cost of being the protagonist, of causing 100%. Harm to others in pursuit of your journey. Oh my God. The series is so much about what Griffith has done to everyone, to the point that includes making someone else this toxic protagonist, this dangerous wrecking ball moving through the world of the story. This is fucking smart.
I think it's also really intelligent of the author because we get to crawl inside of Griffith's head and see how very uncrazy he is. I mean, is he a stable genius? No. Is he a very stable genius? But no, but we see his body broken, and yet it goes into his eye over and over that the rest of him may be destroyed, but he's still perseverating and aware, so that when we see him rescued, we understand the mental duress that he's under, but how he is still very aware of his circumstance, his life, the choices that were made. So when he can't talk because his tongue is cut out, and when he can't move because his tendons have been destroyed, and when his body has been flayed and he's naked and he's so thin that there is no energy in him to do anything, we know that his brain and when he's watching and they keep cutting back to his face inside of his mask, we know everything is hitting
when
him.
Pippin says Griffith showed me, that was fun. Like, this man is thinking so hard that he thinks, how do I, with my eyeballs, communicate a plan to a man who will understand it with my eyes? God.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So it was really intelligent to show us all the narration of his mind first, so that we could see just how cognizant and destroyed he is mentally. He's there, but boy's got some baggage now. Yeah, he could go on a worldwide trip for 3 years without packing another thing. Like, boy is bringing his baggage. Oh, and then we get the cancer kid coming out of the dungeon for a little, hey there, Griffith, how's life? Decided to come and introduce you.
What's up, Prince of Darkness? We just came here, kiss the ring finger. Gonna be a good one. I'm looking forward to the coronation.
And that was a really, really important moment just before he's rescued, because now we have so much information going into the future.
Oh, and he's got so much more hope now. Like, like that has to have rekindled him, because he's like, Prince.
What the hell? I knew I was destined for greatness. So you have the maid of cancer kid come out, kiss the ring, tell him that things are about to change, and then he's rescued right afterwards. And it makes you think about the part where there was the written part that said that people don't actually have the free will they think they have. Because when you see the bubble demon kid come out of the thing to kiss the ring just before he's rescued, the timing is too precious, not intentional. And so that's the finger on the scale that we were talking about earlier when you were talking about, like, is there a finger on the scale? That's the heavy ass finger on the scale. Oh, are you about to be rescued now by Guts? Have you just perseverated about how he has so much strength? He's so beautiful. He wins the hearts of people and he gets to make his own decisions and walk away from your destiny? Were you absolutely destroyed by your longing for him? Oh, just a minute. He's about to rescue you and you're going to have to look at him again. Let's give you hope of being the prince again.
I just want to also highlight here something that Griffith says is so important. People talk about how he might not be a narcissist. He might not be. He might be a psychopath. He is something different. He is something that others him and destroys his feeling of empathy, because you see the way he thinks of other people so deliberately here, where he talks about how I'm not like other people. They always see me with either, it's like disdain or longing. And like the fact that he sees what it kindles in other people as observations. He has this very tactical observations about his impact on people rather than an emotional feeling. Like, this is so giving us the perspective of someone with damaged empathy. Like, there's no other, you have a sense of empathy explanation for the goodwill or animosity. That's what it is. There's no way to explain the way he sees other people.
I had a little moment for me where I think that in the fact that he's calling him the prince and stuff, and I can be putting my own spin in, and I don't give a shit. That it felt really like the thing that the author was trying to highlight was that Griffith is Machiavellian. That especially when you look at the fact that, you know, Machiavellian has the book about the prince called The Prince. But he's got this kind of feeling like power is the ultimate good. So being super powerful and able to control and manipulate things is actually the thing that makes good. That's what's moral. So using people strategically would be the best thing to do, whether it's befriending or seducing or whatever you're doing, manipulating them, because
isn't it, just to give Machiavelli a bit more nuance than he perhaps deserves, wasn't it more like, if you believe you are just and lack the power to exercise justice, then you are not actually accomplishing good. You are a worse good than you would be. So you should focus on power, because what ethical value do you offer if you can't exercise it? Isn't it something like that?
Machiavelli really believes in, like, first of all, the end justifies the means.
Yes.
So whatever the end result is, whatever means it takes to get there, doesn't matter. And that if you don't have the ultimate power, then you can't control what the end is. And if I haven't been justified yet, then it isn't the end yet.
Yeah, it was. I think it's like it's this weird thing where I don't, not to say you're wrong, but just to say sell it to everyone in the most communicative way.
I agree.
It's like, rather than power being justice, it's that there's no justice without power, because then you have no control
can't have justice
over
without
what
power.
happens.
Yeah. And then the other thing is that, like, he has an illusion of virtue because everyone around him keeps thinking like he was so good, he was so golden, he was charming and noble, he inspired people. And that's like that illusion of virtue, but then that betraying them and sacrificing all of them as a political tool actually falls into Machiavellian perfectly, because he would say like, well, that's just another way of gaining power, and gaining power is the most important thing, because once you get to the end, you will see that power requires sacrifice. And so my willingness to chuck these people under the bus is actually virtuous, because I'm not at the end yet. And you'll see that when I get to the end, all of this is justified. My actions are justified through the accumulation of power and my ability to predict the ending.
Griffith is a class traitor. That's true, Angelson. I agree with you.
So I feel like that's where I am with Griffith right now.
I think Berserk's perspective on humanity, and this is going to sound grim, and maybe this is reading a bit of my philosophy into it. I don't think Berserk is a series that truly believes in principles. And what I mean by that is, I think people are acting according to what they think is right and wrong in the moment. And we're seeing people constantly like retroactively justify why their actions are in line with principles. I think some people, Berserk and I both believe, have principled values, but we see people go against what you would think would be in line with their principles and then justify it. I think I would notice it a lot here because people act more emotionally in this section, because this is about Griffith's deep pull on people. But I think like people are coming up with post hoc reasons that their actions make sense a lot of the time when they're actually just acting as people.
I would argue that, but I would argue the only person who ever lives up to their moral and ethical framework is Griffith, that he's Machiavellian.
I think you're right. I was thinking that as I said it.
And that he is the only man who stands by his quote unquote principles.
Yeah, which is why I don't think this is a series about having principles being good, because a lot of people kind of abandon their principles for the sake of what matters more, which I think the series values, which is human connection, which is other people, which is the value we find in each other and each other's dreams. And Griffith, you're right, lives up to his principles of everything justifies my rise so perfectly.
Well, the accumulation of power, the end justifies the means for it. Yeah, no, I would say he's the only one who does. All right, we better move forward. At first, when they were like, they picked who was going away from the Band of the Hawk, and they were like, it's this group. Yeah, no, I'm just gonna say we didn't need to see the moment that Casca gets on the horse and her vagine is in pain. That was weird. I was like, ugh. Because I can tell you as a person who's ridden horses, riding a horse hurts your vagine more than sex. It just does. And so trying to pretend that Griffith
need to go into the detail, but my guess is that you didn't ride a horse the day after you lost your virginity. Maybe that's a thing. It feels weirdly specific.
No, I don't know how to tell you this in a nice way, but the horse will hurt your vagine more. It just will. So if this chick can ride a horse, dude, obviously.
Personally, I thought it was real. I thought it was really real.
I thought it was ridiculous.
I feel like maybe you were lucky in some ways because Lav is often disagreeing. I'm saying Lav is often disagreeing with a lot of your points about anatomy. And
I talked to other women.
I famously never talked to another woman.
No, about this particular scene. About this particular scene, because I'm like, this is wild. And I said, like, Lav, have you ridden a lot of horses?
No, but I've had a lot of...
Oh my God. I just want to say, I'm not talking to chat at all during this section. However, chat, you've been great this section. I hope that everyone watching this on YouTube has been loving chat.
When they found their way in so easily, I was so glad. Like, we knew it was the princess, but I'm like, thank you for actually addressing it. Because otherwise, like, Guts is like, you're never going to find it in this tiny little area, blah. And then they're like, oh, look, there it is. And I was like, God damn, it better be the princess or this is awkward as ass.
It is nice that we immediately, without them having to tell us directly, it becomes obvious, oh, that's how they knew where the entrance was. Like, they didn't need to say, this Guts is how we know.
Yeah, I know. I was happy with that. Their little weird moment together, I'm going to call it romantic, and I'm going to allow it to happen because you're about to go through some shit. You guys should really enjoy this moment before you go down there. I mean, really enjoy it. This is your last happy moment, and apparently it gets worse.
This is the last happy moment forever, yep.
Yeah, I like how well Guts and Casca are running through the dungeon, that they're both having their Griffith moments, thinking about who Griffith was and what he means to them, the same way Griffith just had his Guts moment.
This is where I realized stuff about justification, that we see Charlotte, Casca, and Griffith are all making mistakes here. They're doing the wrong thing. They're speaking improperly. They're stumbling, and they're all doing it for emotions. And Casca and Griffith, because they don't, they're more mature, serious people than little girl princess, are coming up with constant justifications to explain why what they're doing totally makes sense. And they're justifying emotional choices. And I love it because it writes so much nuance in that Guts and Casca are constantly being off their game here because of their emotions. I just love this section.
And as we get deeper and deeper into the basement, we're getting deeper and deeper into our emotions, and we're already getting very volatile. So you can see why we came to the place that we did based on the way that we get there. Mm-hmm. When they popped out and they had Charlotte too, I was kind of like, Charlotte seemed to understand, and I wanna cut this chick some slack since her father tried to get into her business.
Yeah, that's a word.
I don't.
There's words for that. I know we can't. We got it.
Talking about it, like
we'll cut her some slack.
Yeah, but the problem is that when she started to scream because Casca was like, "Dude, you're not going to help. Like he's going to hunt us to the edge of the." To be fair, he does anyways. But he's going to hunt us to the edge of the earth. If you're with us, there's a chance he won't. So when she screams, I'm like, "Bitch, seriously? You know what's up for stake, and it's apparently the man that you love with your whole heart, and yet you're gonna call guards attention? Like, girl.
It's interesting because it feels like she is doing it makes, if her motivation is to come along, it is a smart and tactical decision to force them to keep her with them.
Yes.
However, she's not thinking tactically. However, Casca also then admits that her main reason for saying that was that she feels jealous and she feels bad about it. Like, there's so many layers to this.
And I agree that there was so many layers to it. I just think when you're in a situation that you just had to bribe a couple of your own guards and you're trying to get in to rescue someone, screaming at the top of your lungs is pretty much the number one stupid action you can take. And I was like,
normally they tell you not to. In Breaking People Out of Prison School, they do expressly tell you don't do that one.
It's in chapter 1, actually. It was also really interesting that as we were traveling into the dungeon, that we were being lore fed so wildly hard. They were like, oh, we're gonna run into a dungeon now. We can't talk about that yet because we have to talk about something else first. Now,
what are we
this
talking about?
really impacted you.
What are we talking about?
The cavalier way in which we eat an entire band of hawks.
It got me. Here's where I'm at. I think had this been done the way I would expect it to be done, where it happened more slowly, there was more bracing for it, they set it up more, it would have not affected me that much because frankly, Rickert is the only character here I care about. And I think the author kind of acknowledges that Rickert is the only person you're going to care about here.
Yeah.
Because of that, expertly decides, hey, what's going to happen here is Rickert's going to be your POV character because he's the only one you care about. You are going to see the pain that happens to him, and you would write off this so quickly if you knew what was going to happen. You would write it off as, oh, okay, the monsters are here, everybody's about to die. So the only way they were able to do it was by making it as instant and unpreparable as possible, and by having Rickert stumble his way into it with a fall of expectations, where we start with the elf, fairy, demon monster, beautiful moth design. Love this design. We see,
that's so good.
We see Rickert all excited about it. Hopes are high, feeling good. And then we get to have the immediate crescendo of why are these loose fires? Why is there just loose fires? This is the field. This is where everyone is. Monster, defying expectations, don't understand what's happening. My understanding of reality is broken. I think it didn't hit me nearly as deeply as a lot of the things in Berserk does because none of our main characters are here. But I think similarly to, you can write off an origin with slug data flashback and be like, yeah, it's an orgy. Sorry, is that word not allowed? What did we decide to call it? Orange juice.
We decided to call it breakfast eventually.
Breakfast. We decided breakfast because there's orange juice at breakfast. So you can write off the breakfast scene as kind of nothing, right? You can be like, yeah, they're having some orange juice. They show you a little girl seeing her mom do this when they are in a culture where this is not only a sin, but because she's doing this with a big pagan shrine, this is like an affront to religion. Like this makes her a monster in the eyes of their faith. And that's the way they were able to make you care. I think similarly, if we just said, oh, the Band of the Hawks is dead, we wouldn't care at all, but it was a really smart choice of how to present the information. I think it was done really well.
It's interesting because I noticed a couple of things that were interesting here. Remember when I talked before about how whenever he's about to do something really horrible or whenever there's a page that is like such evil shit, he does it in the most beautiful art that he can?
Yes.
Okay, so he did 3 things here. The first thing that he did is he juxtapositioned Rickert on the starry sky with the beautiful elf fairy flying up and had a moment where we had innocent childhood. I'm down by the water, a beautiful fairy elf comes out on top of the water. I have this magical moment while I'm down doing something. And then he makes a full dark sky with the stars in the sky. And he's like, oh my God, I have to go. And then he realizes, shit, this is bad. Like, oh my God, I fell into a childhood moment.
Why is it dark?
I fell into a childhood moment of just thinking this is so cool, but I need to get out of it and warn them I think this is an attack. So we were looking at the stars in the sky and he comes back and he juxtapositions it with the empty fires, which is huge because this goes to the campfire thing where each one of those fires were like stars in the sky that blended into the edge of the things and each fire represented a dream. And so when we come back to empty fires, they're empty people, but fire still existing. It's like the dreams that they made are still there, but already trampled and falling apart. And all of their dreams are going to be crushed into the ground and put out or destroy a forest. But all of a sudden, all we see is an empty field of dreams. And Rickard stands there for a moment, having just been staring up at the sky, and now he's staring at the stars of the missing people in his life, his world, his universe. His universe is now filled with emptiness. And then a boom! I like how a person is being eaten, and they scream out to him, "Run." Which, talk about, like, that dude, high five to that dude. That is some trying to help a kid out moment. I am literally being snacked in half, and I'm just going to take this moment. And then props to you, Slug Dad. You really do get gross.
This continues to be something we need to talk about. The campfire dreams, that there was this idea that everyone brought their dreams together under the glow of Griffith to carry them. And the dreams were small things, but they felt like they could accomplish them in the presence of this great light. And Griffith, we see as now this person who wants the brightest light. He wants the sun itself. He wants to shine brightly. Mm-hmm. And now we see Griffith's coronation procession casually snuffing out every light that is gathered underneath him.
Exactly.
Smothering them.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I also want to bring up, I predicted that the entire Band of the Hawks would be destroyed as part of the sacrifice. I think I'm like half right.
When one person's light shines the brightest, the others are nothing in comparison. Yeah, exactly, Kev Dog. Because it's like you've got this field of the campfire of dreams, and then when one person overshines it, the other lights are smaller. If you turn the big light on in the house, the small lights no longer have their moment to shine. Oh, literally.
Oh, wait. And if he wants to be the sun, under the light of the sun, a campfire is nothing. It literally feels like it doesn't produce light.
It literally just goes away and doesn't matter. He could have given up his entire army, right? And that would have been a really good sacrifice. But then by them taking it, they're also showing them the power that they have, that they're like, okay, if you don't sacrifice Casca or Guts or any of these other people, go ahead and sacrifice Judo, for instance.
Oh my God.
If you don't do that, we can just take them. What is saying that you can save them? So you might as well sacrifice them and get the power and the strength and the beauty back of your body and gain a power you've never had before. Because if you don't, look how easy it was for us to literally eat all your people. So what's the point? So it kind of makes a showing to him too. If breaking you in the basement wasn't enough, if your jealousy of Guts wasn't enough, if you're watching Guts come out with all that strength when you have nothing left, if the brokenness of your body isn't enough, the fact that you're never going to meet the potential you feel like you were lived for wasn't enough, just remember, what does it matter anyways? We can literally just off anyone you cared about. So you might as well sacrifice them.
That's beautiful. I like that. I don't know if it would be enough anyways, but it's so much more important that there's no bargaining chip. There's no option that it has to be
Casca alone and you can have my whole army.
Yeah, you can't even begin to. It's her or nothing.
But effing Slug Dad, right?
He's terrifying. Can I just say, it's crazy that we find out here that Skull Guy is the previous king. He's basically the Roman emperor. Like, he created the unified continent. And now he's at the biggest downgrade ever. He becomes the head of the God Hand, in theory. That seems to be his place. And his job now is to just show up and say spooky shit to people. That's his position in the world now.
I think he's going to have some more lore around him other than being the old great king who then became a Skeletor.
Can I get into my lore predictions around him?
Yeah.
I think each of the God Hand is meant to represent some sort of concept broadly. And I think one of them is conquest. Maybe it's the 4 horsemen plus a friend. I don't know. But if it were the 4 horsemen, one of them would be conquest, order, control. I believe that in great cycles, that member of the God Hand is meant to find himself a replacement, that there is meant to be a new conqueror who rises up and is chosen to be the new piece of conquest, that the Skull King was the previous one. We see that the legends here, I think this part's obvious, this doesn't even count as prediction. The legends here are that he was so sinful, angels came to smite him. But since we see the dark mark on all of the skulls in the fallen city, very, very obviously what we're meant to infer happened is that rather he was a great and evil king. He reached a point of evil and demonic power that was enough that he was able to ascend to be part of the God Hand, and he chose willingly to sacrifice all of his people and was ascended, not smited, and the city was sacrificed. And it has been translated wrong because angels and gods, demons and gods are all the same thing. They are just greater beings. As Griffith said, that is the entire mythology of this series, very clearly. None of that, the demons are called apostles, right? I forgot that. That makes sense. None of that feels like it's worth calling a theory. The theory part that I find cool is that this is meant to be some great cycle where the conqueror leads to crowning the next conqueror, that Griffith takes his place in the God Hand. He becomes the next great king and sacrifices maybe the city. Maybe he somehow will become king here. Who knows? And he must sacrifice them all. The point is that what I find interesting is that if I'm right about all that, if that's all true, Guts has now made his goal to be like, fuck your great cycle. I'm going to be so strong that I kill it. No more great cycle. Fuck, done with it. No more new king. No more God Hand. You're not doing it. It's not calling it quits. We're done. Pack it in. And I think that's very fun.
I don't even know. Is that a prediction though? Because like, don't we know that's what he's trying to do?
We don't know there's like a particular great cycle or anything. The nuances are the prediction part, but like, I think it's a lot of it just feels kind of blatant.
I think it feels blatant. Like if he isn't trying to do that, why even?
I'm just saying I think there is a great cycle that is meant to occur, and that he is against the turning of the wheel, that Guts' enemy isn't just like abstractly Griffith.
Are you saying that this is the wheel of time and he's gonna break it?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying exactly.
Okay, I'm into it.
Medieval Doom guy. That's another way to put it.
Yeah, no, I'm into it. And I would totally agree with you. I have no notes. I just totally agree with you.
Guys, death battle. Guts versus Doom guy. I'm sorry. Guts, you're strong, but you're losing that fight. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have put you here. I'm sorry, Guts. No.
Medieval Doom guy is the only one I'm scared at. The giant Sneck is just hilarious. Slug Dad is
scary. We just know he dies.
No, he's just gross. Slug Dad is just gross.
He's scary. What about the weird mantis monster with the arm whose body is a pile of corpses?
Isn't that mantis monster remind you of the ghost of, is it Christmas Past, who's filled with all the dead and hungry people under his robes?
I have not seen that version. I've only seen the Muppets version, madam. And
oh my God.
That was not part of the Muppet version of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, no, the Muppets didn't bring that.
That energy, the Muppets weren't bringing it.
So awesome. I love that you just said that. Yeah. In the not Muppet version, the place that everyone gets this from is that originally Dickens had all the souls of the lost and starving were hid under the Ghost of Christmas Past's robes. Kind of reminded me of that in this piece, that his terror and hatred was built out of all the victims. Yeah.
That's pretty rad.
And then we leave the poor little boy in the middle of the field of fires as all the starlights slowly put themselves out, and he just weeps himself into an oblivion. The end. No more hawks. Ta-da!
We did it. We solved the problem. The problem was too many hawks out here, right? That was the problem. The story was too many hawks. Oh, we fixed it. This is the wrong place to bring it up for sure. How sweet it was when Griffith in chapter -1 of this section said, I never felt that way with you, when she mentioned him hating being touched, which,
oh, yes. Yeah, this is the wrong moment to bring that up though, but yeah, you are right. That was sweet.
Look, I meant to bring it up earlier.
Yeah, I meant to bring it up earlier too. That's funny.
You know, guys, there's a problem with this drawing, which is it's the first one I've done that doesn't include Griffith, and I don't know if that's okay.
You can just have a little Griffith eye coming out of the sword. The lore is hot, but he definitely gave up his entire city. That's what he gave up to be Mac Daddy's Skeletor.
And because the God Hand showed up, it was said to be angels smiting the city.
Do you want to hear something inappropriate?
Was that?
I kind of think he's hot when he's a Skeletor. Like, he's got a really hot look to him.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but online is full of people who are totally okay with you thinking monsters are hot.
Just that one in particular. I don't really usually like monsters, but I think that I think he in particular, Skeletor, kind of hot, and I don't usually like that kind of dude. Yeah, good bone structure. Oh, Brother Onion,
bone structure.
You just gave a great funny Brooke joke there.
Yeah.
Okay, the lore was loring. I think it might be time to do a little corking on this. I might have to take out a page and start corking away because, yeah, he gives up the whole city, blah, blah, blah. But I think we find more information in here, and I think we need to spend a bit more time with it. I love the idea that it was built on top of the city, but that it also obviously is a portal to hell. So there's more to this than meets the eye, because it having an unending bottom, like, nobody has ever made it to the bottom. They have never come back anyways. I mean, maybe they're still walking. One never knows. Maybe they found supplies along the way and they've had a whole life and a wife and children.
Maybe there's a civilization down there that started anew in the ruins. We don't know. We haven't checked. I mean, we haven't succeeded in checking.
We don't know for sure that they don't have art and culture and dances, but most likely death. Most likely it's death and hell.
I love Casca being clumsy, giving us the lore detail that was like, hey, did you realize that he sacrificed the city? And I was like, yeah, I figured that out like last panel. I was like, don't worry, Casca dropped the torch to give you 100% confirmation.
Yeah. Thank you, Casca. That was amazing. Oh, look, bodies.
Holy no.
She didn't do that. He did that to her.
Okay. In Casca's defense, she didn't do that at all. The narrative is literally twisting to tell the story. That's the whole point of this section. Because we see things like Charlotte being able to do things she doesn't think she should be able to do. We see fate arranging to have everyone brought together just in time for this assault. Of course she dropped the torch to let us know. This is God telling his story, and the story requires us being aware that this was sacrificed.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. And then the torch goes, whee! Which means that it's, when we were talking earlier, it's less of a finger on the scale and more of something else on the scale. Bigger than a finger, smaller than a hippo. Dead people, they're dead and they're tattooed. Yeah. I made that song for them because, like, they've been through some shit. They deserve a little song. They go down, they're going into the Dungeon of Joy, or as we call it, Castle Basement. And
I love that. We call it that? I love that for us.
And as they're going into Castle Basement,
I'm so much cuter.
Well, we did say that we were going to do Berserk the Happy method, and so I just think that sounds better than Dungeon. Casca takes a mo and stands there and says to herself, Griffith has been in the bottom of this darkness for a whole year. But when he drew her unclothed.
Yes.
And I was like, is he trying to strip her of protection and show how rawly it's hitting her?
I think that was meant to be it.
Because he also drew her hair so that there was no edge to her mind. It blends into the background. So I was like, well, I guess he's trying to show how it's taken away all of her protection and she is just fully vulnerable to the hell that has been Griffith's life.
I think that's kind of it. I think it's meant to be vulnerability. And I say that because we know what fan service art of Casca looks like, and it's constant butt shots, which I find strange because I'll be real, Casca is very pretty. She's well drawn. She's beautiful. Hot lady. She kind of got no cake, and it always feels weird to have the fan service shots of her ass all the time.
I'm just saying that when I look at it, I'm like, oh, that looks like a sweet little boy who's running away towards the ocean to go play in the waves. Here's why I think it's important that they did that to Casca, and they blended her and made her naked in that moment and really let her dig into her empathy, because it really is foil to us coming back to Griffith, whose empathy is broken and who can never put himself in other people's position, to see how deeply Casca can put herself into somebody else's position and understand. Like it felt like her mind wasn't separate. Her head wasn't separate. It was part of the whole scenario because it was showing just how much she understood the hell of being in there and started to appreciate and put herself in his shoes. Whereas he is unable to do that.
I agree.
I think that was a really important panel because when I first looked at it, I just kind of read over it and moved on. And then I was like 6 pages forward when I was like, you know what, wait a minute, and went back and looked at it and looked at his choice to draw it so that she has no distinction from her surroundings and she's naked. And I was like, no, I think that this is really actually very important. Blah, 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 blah.
I hadn't noticed that or thought about it myself, but I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Look, I know it depends on what people train. I'm just saying, like, I'm not even saying, oh, it's unrealistic that she doesn't have an ass. I am in no way commenting on that. I'm just saying,
why you focusing on the
yeah,
butt?
it's like if your fan service is going to be constantly doing butt shots, it's the meta narrative of if you're going to draw her butt so often, if you're going to have so many shots where it's like, how you know that someone's talking to Casca is Casca's ass is in the foreground. Why then does she have no ass? That's the question. It's the meta narrative question of if you're going to focus on it so much, why is it like this?
When they go in, I like that there's a puddle of light in the middle of the floor. So like the hot spot of a theater when you're on a stage and yet there's nobody in it. I think that was a really cool choice to make, that he's outside, because it shows that in his current situation, he's not even the star of the show in his own prison. Like a big round puddle of light comes out and he's nowhere in it. He's in the shadow.
Oh.
So he isn't even a main character enough to be in his own light. And he kind of also looks like, because they kept his helmet on him, right? Like, what? That's a choice.
Well, it's almost become, instead of like a military helmet, like a man in the iron mask kind of thing. Like,
exactly.
Like it's kind of dehumanizing, which he keeps it on when he becomes a demon.
Yeah. Because when you look at him on the ground, he looks alien. He looks like one of the people already that is attacking the world. He's in this mask. It's not off his head. He isn't waving his pretty hair around. He probably doesn't have a lot of hair left from the malnutrition. But he already looks like one of the guys he's about to become.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, that's true. Because they're all distortions and exaggerations of the human form, and that's what he is right now. He's distorted. He's broken. Oh my God, I didn't think about that. That's so cool.
Including his entire spine is outlined and highlighted in individual pieces coming out of his neck.
And you can see ribs and sinew.
His helmet locked onto it because of him being flayed. So like he literally already looks like one of the creatures that he's about to choose to be.
Oh, that's really interesting.
I thought that this whole section here was just, I hate Griffith, don't get me wrong. And I still was like, oh, damn, this is some torture.
I just had another thought about the meta-narrative reading of if you see this as the story of a protagonist being acknowledged, had that will to be a protagonist being acknowledged. Common things authors talk about is needing to put their protagonist through suffering to kind of earn their place. And that's exactly what's happening. He can't make this, he won't be ready to make this decision that is needed for him to accomplish his mission unless he suffers. This is the author making him suffer to earn his position.
Oh, damn. Nice. I also like how protective that Guts becomes. It really shows that whether Guts knows it or not, the two of them are still deeply connected. And so for us, it's even more amazing because we already saw Griffith and Guts pairing down in the depths on the edge of hell. So when we see how much they are attached to each other and how both of their narratives are dependent upon each other, they're interconnected in a way that they can't even say out loud. Like, honestly, I think they should couple up sometimes and just like bang it out and then they'd feel better. But it's
the issue is, hear me out about a reading I've had about Mr. Guts Berserk.
I'm never going to get over the fact that we continue to call him Mr. Guts Berserk.
It's very funny. I think Mr. Guts Berserk is sexually straight. I think he might be romantically bi.
I think these two are connected. And we were kind of hinted at that right away in the Griffith washing himself at the well and Guts having a very different level.
Common polyamory W. Everything would be solved by a throuple here. I'm just right. This is a great throuple. Look, I know things are about to get real bad. I'm talking alternate timeline where things didn't reach this way. There's no hope for Griffith in this timeline. We are fully aware. We've mentioned this before.
In my world, I also see it as an alternate timeline where Guts is able to admit his deep love and respect for Griffith, and Griffith is able to admit his deep love for Guts, and they're just like, yeah, and they become better people. And they'll bring Casca in, obviously. You know who won't make it? Do you know who won't make it? Who won't make it into this polyamory?
Who's that?
It starts with a J and it ends with a get the fuck out of here. And also, like, we haven't seen anyone in here having just a normal gay relationship. So that also makes me think that maybe culturally that's a thing as well in this world. Okay. Nothing gave me, this is something I almost picked. Nothing gave me more like, oh shit.
Yeah.
It's about to get real. Not even eating all the hawks, because sometimes you're hungry and you got to eat a hawk, but nothing gave me more like, oh shit. Then when Guts goes over and is holding Griffith, and we see the slit of his hawk mask with his eye in a tiny slit just looking up, he's being moved. He doesn't even recognize it. He already said he couldn't feel his body in the other thing. And all of a sudden it's Guts' face, and his eye shoots open and his whole pupil is Guts. And the way that he drew that eye, I already felt like Griffith was about to be like, everything in him is focused only on Guts. His eye never gets smaller. It's constantly just staring at Guts. He touches Guts. He's fixed on everything that is Guts. And while Guts is holding him and crying for the loss of humanity and for the pain that he's got in, it feels like Griffith is looking at him like he's being weeped on. Griffith's eyes are covered in Guts' tears, and it feels like Griffith is still looking at him like, how dare you be so beautiful, so alive, so physically strong, so heroic, while I'm this. And it made me feel like we were about to see some shit change, because it was seeing how freaking powerful, how much power that Guts had, now little power Griffith had, made me feel that Griffith was about to be like, oh no, that can't stay. And so I could see then why Griffith would, and one more reason why Griffith would take the apple.
Yeah. Oh, real quick. Casca being seen by Charlotte, and Charlotte saying, oh, I didn't recognize you were a woman last time, ties into my theory about dehumanization and how man and woman are identities. They are human identities, because Casca kind of reclaimed her humanity in this section. We see her talking about just living a life and choosing a path other than being a sword. And that is when Charlotte is able to see her. Let's go.
Hi there, YouTube. It's me and Mama Drawk. We are going through the Berserk. We are doing all the One Piece. Thank you. Subscribe, like, rock it out, hang with us. Okay, and bye. Bye!
Bye! We're going to do a lot of lovely things for you. For one, I'm going to start doing roundtable theory discussions once a month in the near future. We made a chat in the Patreon for the crew. If you remember the crew tier, you can pitch your thoughts. Honestly, the biggest issue is having them in multiple places. Now that we have one place for it, nice and easy, consistent. So thank you so much to Dr. Jack, Draco Meme, and Dark A Kudo.
Yeah.
A couple people are asking if we think that Griffith was reaching out to choke Guts.
I'm trying to find the page with, and I did find it. I do agree. It does look like he's trying to choke him.
I think much like what did he intend for Casca and Guts to hear him? One of the great things about him as a character is that at so many points, you can read things he does two different ways. And I love that. I love how often you can be like, I don't know which way I'm supposed to read this.
No, that's good writing. But you know, this moment that I asked you to draw, it was having them be locked in. And immediately when they got locked in, I was like, this isn't a big deal. Normally when somebody gets locked in, I'm like, oh no, how are they going to get out? It's going to take forever. In this one, I'm like, oh no, you locked him in with Guts' crazy sword from Crazy Town. I don't know if you know who you're dealing with.
Frankly, I didn't know if I was expecting Guts to cut through it or if I was expecting Pippin to just like casually push it open. Considering we saw Pippin, I know Guts is strong. Pippin literally like just lifting tombstones instead of figuring things out. Pippin is monstrously strong. In what world were they not getting out?
I knew it would be Guts and his sword. I was just like, we're sorting this moment.
Because this section is about Guts' anger, Yeah. Thematically, it works better.
But as he kept talking, I did this disgusting thing. I cut his tendons. I flayed his skin. I waited until it healed. We were like a man and wife. I was like, ugh. And then I was like, you know what? Keep talking, bruh. You're really bringing the wrath out in a beautiful way. And they did the thing they always do from the bottom, looking up their nose. Ugh. Anyway, I have rarely felt such instant joy as when there's a page before the one I gave you, when he smashes through the door and sticks it through his chest. And I was like, oh, can we all just stand up and give a round of applause for this? Can we just say, like, immediate retribution is such a gift. And when an author is like, I'm not going to make you wait. Why do we murder him? Why do we murder him right now?
I love it. There's something beautiful about this moment that I'm just kind of realizing now, that like Griffith is to Guts more than anything the man who inspired him to want to be better, the man who inspired him to want to reach better heights when he never thought of himself as worthwhile, as a capable, worthwhile person. And I think it's great that Griffith and Guts probably hate this moment just as much, where Griffith is hating seeing Guts towering above him as this perfect, as the new protagonist, as the person who's been carrying the story, finding himself, who's been in his training arc, who's had his sword broken and repaired.
And having sexual relations with Casca.
Yes, like Griffith hates everything about this. Guts also hates it. This is the man who inspires him, who makes him want to be more, who is everything he wants to be, brought low and reduced to nothing by someone he sees as pathetic. And
also, let's not forget that thing that we talked about earlier, when people are off trying to find themselves and determine who they're meant to be. He's just realized that while he was off trying to find himself, this is what was happening back home to Griffith.
Mm-hmm. And like the idea that both of them despise this moment is kind of great. I love Guts just being more and more stoked, like his rage just boiling over here.
Well, I think it's really important that you define that they both despise this moment, but I also think it's really important to mention that they both despise the moment, but it's the moment that defines who they are in their humanity. Griffith despises the moment because of how little power he has and how much it makes him jealous and hateful. And Guts despises this moment because of what he didn't do to help. He realizes he came here and they were able to rescue Griffith. He came here and they were able to take him out of this hell, and he could have done it earlier. So he blames himself for the pain that Griffith is in. And so it really kind of shows two sides of that coin. Here is Guts and his humanity. Here's Griffith and his humanity.
Yeah. Oh man.
I am going to cut Griffith some slack in this moment. I don't think I would want anyone to see me that way. But on the other hand, the ability to have that much pride in the state he's in, like, you got to have a strong will of thinking you were born to be the best.
Being able to be offended in this moment, like offended, embarrassed, being able to have anything other than misery is he is a protagonist in a series that doesn't like protagonists, but he is a protagonist. He has every ounce of will that someone like Luffy or Fuko has.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I loved seeing him get his tongue cut out. That also wasn't just sweet revenge. It was just like, I mean, I know an eye for an eye and the tooth for a tooth, and we're all toothless, but
yeah, that's how that one went, right?
It's something like that. I really liked him saying, like, oh, just a minute, just before you die, I want to make sure that I take your tongue, since you thought it was such a great little piece to keep with you. And I really hope that after some things calm down, which apparently they won't, that he gives it to Griffith as a gift on a necklace.
Huh.
I think that would be nice. I mean, it's only fair. Don't get me wrong. We hate the shit face, but
yeah.
On the other hand,
you can be pure evil and still suffer, but
yeah, this was wild. This is wild levels of torture. There's torture, and then there's whatever the shit this is. Here we go. We're running through a castle. We're cutting off some heads. Some people are shooting us, and they all end up dead. Yay! Woo! 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 You're welcome. I wrote that song. It's all that's Guts' theme song as he's running out of the castle basement. That's what he's singing.
Yeah, that's the song.
Yeah. And then he's like, we're being shot with arrows. I'll cut off all their heads. Woo! See, it's just such a good song. It's like, it's a banger.
That was a good song.
Yeah. You know what was good about it?
The
way Guts killed all the people. And then he comes out and they're like, it's the man that killed 100 people. And he's like, I can't even hear you because I'm in a fugue of death. Once again, he uses human shields.
It's really his go-to move when people got bows, huh?
Yes.
It makes sense. I mean, like, why not?
That's one of his go-to moves. His other one is multi-head chop.
Multi-head chop is a great attack. Frankly, I think it's a bit busted in the current meta. Please nerf.
I also almost chose the moment when Guts is just covered in blood and he's kneeling down like a feral animal ready to pounce. Oof. When he's down on the ground and he's in a crouched position and he's covered in blood, that's a really important time for him because he's feral. He looks like an animal. He's in a pouncing position. And I think it was really important that the author was trying to say, like, Guts is no longer here. It kind of reminds me of Poltergeist. Like, this person is no longer here. There is only Zool. Oh, no, it's Ghostbusters. I am thinking of Ghostbusters. There is no Guts. Only, you know what? Let's just keep calling him Zool, shall we? Only Zool.
Oh, Zool is, whoa. Or maybe the theory is true that Zod is his dad and there is no Guts, only Zod.
There's no Guts, only Zod.
He's Zod moding. He's fucking Zod mode.
Oh, here is why I like him chopping off heads. And I know what you're thinking right now. Is there ever a time for head chopping? Yes. In this one, though, it's when you are capable of chopping off a head and showing the brain separately leaving the head from the top of the head with a hanging eyeball. If you're an author that can draw that, then you might as well chop some heads off.
Yeah. You might as well.
Dude, it's next
pretty brutal.
level drawing. It's some of the most brutal, because usually when I'm reading like in One Piece, or because I don't know if you heard this, I'm kind of a manga monster now. And so usually when I'm watching a fighting scene, I'm like, there is a lot of happening, and I like to be able to get into details in a picture, and I like to pull things from it. And when this happens, I was like, you can't really see fighting, but he literally managed to create a wild scene where the brain is leaving separately, and then there is a goddamn eyeball hanging off of a piece of head. And I was like, okay, props, man. Like, gross. I feel sick. I can't eat.
I want to say how fucking dumb this dude is, where he's like, ha, men, don't worry. He's out of breath. Only a fool would be off guard. My guy saying this, only a fool would be off guard in front of his enemy, while he is literally off guard, literally not in a fighting stance, doesn't have his weapon in a defensive position. Like, maybe he could have parried. He's just standing there like, haha, only a fool would have his guard. Fucking dumb bitch.
You know, he deserved to have his brain go on a trip without his head.
He did. He deserved that for sure.
Kev Dog is like, I think his stomach it more because of the fantastical tone. I would agree. That is...
If there's anyone who didn't deserve it, and granted, I'm not mad at Guts, you have to get out. I think like guards 3 through 6 who were like, dude, can we surrender? And then didn't have a moment to surrender after Guts killed the guy saying, no, you're not allowed to surrender, and their death. I feel a little bad for them.
First of all, there is no Guts. There is only Zod.
Fair, true, yeah.
And second of all, Casca even tries to be like, Guts! And Guts is like, there is only Zod. But also, dude, anyone you leave behind your back is a potential killer later on. You got to kill those bitches. You don't have a choice.
Whoa, okay.
You got to die. Like, I understand maybe you want to put your sword down right now because you're like, dude is out of control. Zod is coming for me. But no, those bitches got to die. And he does what he's got to do. But there is a moment here when he's cutting off another 3 heads. I was just trying to see where he's cutting, where we suddenly go back to Griffith, who has a ... coming out of his eyes looking at him. And oh, the jealousy. He sees that Guts is even more than he used to be. He's like, dude is strong, dude is doing his thing. And then he sees this and he's like, you fucker. You are a different level now. I have never hated you more. The power you hold in your body has fueled my anger monkey to a point I can no longer contain it.
There's something interesting to think about here. The idea that like the God Hand have spelled their own doom in Guts, that they've let him reach this point. They've raised him to this level. They've given him this path so that he can be the thing that motivates Griffith to take the plunge and become the next member of the God Hand. Yes. And in doing so, they've made someone capable of surviving the sacrifice, someone who can endure against endless demons, someone who is so purely just a weapon that he is able to survive this and still be a man after being sacrificed. There's something very cool about that.
That is not a lie.
Spelling their own doom.
What the shit happened to this king in 2 years? Is he using his
year,
soul
dude?
juice?
It's been a year.
Are you shitting my donkey? It's been a year, and this year looking like a man
pretty
with
okay, pretty together, yeah.
Yeah, and now he looks like 1,000. Is he using his soul as like juice for people? I think what happened is hurting his daughter and causing the deepest trauma ever. It was like that sweet, sweet pipe. And that it literally ate away his soul. He's kind of like the picture of Dorian Gray. Now we're just seeing what his soul looks like. It released his soul to the top of his face. And so I think we're just supposed to see that when he sexually assaulted his daughter, that all of his twisted internal disgustingness became the surface of his human, and now it's like a warning to everyone else.
Interesting. I like that a lot. I was feeling that, but I want to go a step further because that implies something that I really like, because this whole section is about the deep tendrils of Griffith's influence. the deep effect Griffith has had on everyone in this story. The way that he is the center of everything, despite being completely broken, that he has left an impact on everyone. And that's part of it. He brought out the evil that was lurking in the king. He taunted him and brought out this worst part of him. So I really like that read.
Yeah, I totally think that is the additional part to that, 100%.
You assume the king did it before Griffith did, but think about it. Charlotte reacted really violently. Like the way Charlotte reacted, there was surprise and shock. I think he was like that before, but I don't think he'd acted on it before.
Said it out loud and it released it in him, and he was like, well,
like
I'm
it
gonna
felt
act on this now.
Because she seemed to really love her father before that. My read on it was that it kind of was a thing that was there that was tapped into and released by Griffith's taunting.
Yeah.
Yeah, thinking it but never acting on it's how I read it for sure.
Yeah. Like, I think that's what I mean, is because he's been secretly thinking about it and perseverating about it for years, that when he acted upon it, all the rottenness that was inside of his thoughts came to the surface of his face and body.
Interesting.
And you know what I have to say? Summon the Bakaraka! And then take out the king.
So do you think these are just guys, or do you think they're like part demon? Because one of them has frog powers and one of them's way too tall. I don't know.
They didn't seem like just guys, if I'm going to be honest. One of them is so tiny.
One of them, he's got frog powers.
Yeah, one of them is a Froggy Froggerson. Yeah, I don't know.
I think they were talking about these dudes like they're this foreign enemy, this foreign mercenary group. We didn't know they were here. My thinking is that knowing the eclipse was coming, people with demonic powers and influence have been slowly congregating to Midlands to be here for the coronation. That they've been moving their way here bit by bit. And that's why the Black Hounds leader is here. And that's why these guys are here.
I think you're fully right about that. That's a good take. Another good take is that this was the first draft of the Ninja Turtles.
Oh my God. They got the power of not being from Europe. Look, guys, I'm just saying, Salit or whatever his name was, also not from Europe, didn't look like this.
No. They are
That was
weird.
just a guy. That was a guy with acrobatic powers. These are not normal dudes. The guy's a frog, guys. The dude's a frog.
And he melts and becomes something else and comes out of the ground. Like, come on. I like that they show all the bodies all laid out everywhere, and then they show Griffith staring with the Griffith eye. That's what I'm going to call it from now on. And then we have the Griffith eye staring at Guts, and everyone is just looking at Guts, who's leaning on his 9,000-foot sword. And Charlotte goes, he scares me.
If I had a nickel for every time Guts saved a young woman and they were terrified of him, I'd have 2 nickels.
He scares you? What part was it? All the brains flying around?
I mean, she didn't even see all that. She showed up in time to see him slaughter the last few, but also sees him a bit later up the hallway, fucking soaked in blood, leaning on his sword with animal face on. Like, shit.
It does give him an inhuman silhouette as well.
Dog.
Also, the best Griffith eye needs to be, because usually authors and artists decide to do the thing and then make a response after it. Same with actors, right? Like you were responding to an event that happened. But in this case, he let us see the Griffith eye clear, focused, prior to seeing, we see Griffith's look prior to getting to see Casca wiping the blood off of Guts.
I think there's a lot of stuff we see here. The storytelling in Berserk in general is often done in a slightly different order or method than you expect. I think it's cool because it keeps you off your feet. Like it keeps you a little bit less ready for it. Like, because when a trope comes up, it's presented in different enough of a presentation. Like it's the same as the prologue, focusing on letting us know the darkness within Griffith instead of making the twist. Not showing us the prologue emphasizes the twist. Showing us the prologue emphasizes the darkness.
Yes, exactly. And so I like that he chooses to do that whenever we have a moment where like we see the person viewing it, so we understand the viewing of it is the importance of the viewing of it.
Yes.
He puts it ahead, so we're like, that's the part you should focus on.
I hadn't even considered that a lot of the moments I've talked about today, like Rickert reacting to everyone dying, or Slug Daughter looking at the breakfast scene, we constantly have emphasis being put on observation, on reaction.
Exactly. And so usually in art, they do the reaction second so we can see the thing. But he's like, no, the thing that you need to focus on is the person seeing it.
Doesn't that tie in so well with the idea of criticizing protagonists, where everything in protagonist culture tells you to write active tense, tells you to write
Exactly.
action, not reaction? And this is a
Exactly,
series
which
that
is why
shows
I
you
think this is such a big deal because, like,
Mhm.
this goes against everything that you're
It
told to
does, it
learn and
does.
teach.
Well, because this
Yeah.
is a story about how focusing on nothing but action and conquest and achieving your goals burns everyone around you. So of course
Exactly.
there's this emphasis put on reaction. God
And
damn.
and it's kind of got that amazing quality that so many people try to get, where you should be letting the audience fill in what happens so that it hits them in the worst possible and the best possible way. So there was this idea that you needed to explain everything and unpack everything so the audience had the greatest amount of information, and then that would be the thing that impacted. And then some authors said, no, you're doing it the exact wrong way. Because instead, if you give less information, then the audience is able to come up with their own horror, their own worst scenario, etc. And so you should put the emphasis on taking away some of the action and some of the consequences and some of the speech of what this did to me so that the audience can create the worst variety in their head.
God, the storytelling is always just so like precise here when it needs to be. This is not older than protagonist culture. Although I will say this was started right before protagonist culture was first like really heavily criticized in literature. Because I just looked it up. Okay. This is crazy. I need to find the exact months here. Berserk's first actual publication outside of testing was 1990. That's the same year that The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell was published, which means that protagonist culture, the idea of a protagonist being a driving force of a narrative and the thing that everything should focus around, was being observed by other literary critics at the exact moment that Berserk was written. So I don't think it's fair to say this was before protagonist culture, because the protagonist culture wasn't reaching kind of a boiling point. Joseph Campbell wouldn't have been writing his work when he did. So I think it makes perfect sense that two people made a similar observation, but one positively and one negatively at the same time. Like, that's entirely reasonable. I think saying otherwise is really silly, because then you're saying Kenny Boy was only capable of making this observation if someone else had laid out the track for him. And when someone is this intellectual with how they write, I don't think that's fair to say.
We're looking at Edward Scissorhands on the ceiling. His legs are long. He is what we in the business call yucky.
Yeah.
I just thought he was so gross.
He's
like,
I
felt bad for him because I was like, dude, like the whole Edward Scissorhand thing, gross. The whole spinny spin off of the roof, gross.
I love the choreography in this whole scene.
100%. Dude melting out of the ground under the private parts of people, gross.
Yep.
It was well done.
Hey, I have a question about him. Do you think whenever this assassin troop shows up in an area without shallow water, Frog Guy just stays on the bleachers for that one?
Great question. I think you bring...
Because that seems to be his thing, right?
If I was him, I'd be like, in my contract, I must have a fire hose put down any area I'm going to go if there is no water. That's where I do my best work.
No, this is so good. Hear me out. I think I understand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Blow Dart Guy needs crevices. Any fight where there's no crevices, he's out. Explosion Girl needs a contained area. Frog Guy needs shallow water. Guy with the long legs needs a hallway. So they looked ahead and were like, okay, where are we going to go?
Blow Dart Guy is mid because like you can't even shoot the right person. A princess can put her arm in the way. Like, do better. What I'm saying here is my toxic trait is thinking that I'd be a great blow dart guy, and this guy isn't bringing it.
I will say, Charlotte, there are better ways to stop a blow dart than with your arm.
Yeah.
Like, you're right. Good eyes and reflexes. The fact that she noticed, it might be God's hand pushing her for sure, but she did get there. But also, that was the wrong defensive. You know what? You have like a quarter of a second to react. I guess that's all you could do.
I'm not going to lie. Sometimes you got to put a princess in danger so you can get her out of danger.
That's true. I mean, it did work to get her out of there.
That's what we did here. Now we have to take the princess away.
I love that right away the guys were like, hey, time out. You don't want her to die, right? Yeah, that would be really bad for us. We'd be in a lot of trouble. We would also be in a lot of trouble. How about We just take a quick break. We'll get back to killing each other. Send the princess to safety. That way, yeah. Because when it works, because when this is over, both of us, we want her to be alive regardless. Cool. Get back to killing each other when she's out of the way. Back to it. Like, that's just funny to me. I love it.
I was perplexed at what Griffith was trying to say when the princess was sliding down his body poisoned.
I think he mouthed the words "go."
Just go. Maybe. I don't. If you're wondering what's taking place right now, Squishies, I am literally saying the word "go" and trying to make the mouth shapes that Griffith made.
But he said it in Japanese.
It's not going well so far. I'm gonna go.
Yeah, but he's not speaking English.
Yes, but I'm gonna say maybe. Spear dude. You know what I really liked? They gave him a great big huge tummy. Like, when super muscly people get really, really big, their tummy actually goes out. I was really happy for one of the first times
the power lifter build.
Yeah, that they actually drew him appropriately. Like, they had his belly come out and it's muscle growth.
Yep.
I was like, oh, good for you.
I also I think big guys with ranged weapons aren't used enough because, you have the giant dudes with a big hammer, but think about how much force a big guy can throw something with. And this series was like, yeah, we'll do that. Big guy throwing giant javelin.
And then Judo gets all like, I got an idea, but there's no time to explain it because I'm Judo. And then he does something. But Pippin was really cool in it. Good for you, Pippin. And that's all I have to say about that moment. They killed effectively. It was really impressive, actually. Their little fight against the Bakura. You know who is hot AF?
Who's that?
Chiku comes down with the thing wrapped around her body and the pashmina. I'm gonna light this place on fire.
She got a hot vibe.
Baby, you lit this place on fire the moment you came in here. Like, don't even worry about it. You got this.
I did have a moment of being like, girl, literally, why are you out here at an assassination mission with your tits out? And then I had a realization. Her weapon makes it so that if people react like a half second too late, they will explode to death.
Yep.
So maybe the tits are just there to be like, maybe these will give a half second of hesitation. Maybe if my tits are out, there'll be a half second where a man is looking at me like, are her tits out? Well, oh, fuck! But to give me the moment to blow him up.
Also, it's kind of got that grooving in a cave with a picked kind of thing. She's kind of like blue duding it when you fight naked and you're like, do you think I'm worried about you? I don't need armor. Like, I'm literally...
But then even then,
come at me.
I realize armor doesn't really matter to her because she's never planning on engaging in a close melee fight. Like, she never wants to be in a fight with someone.
You don't want to cook alive in your goddamn thing, and your clothes could burn off, so naked is probably the way to go. Less things catching on fire.
Yeah, look, there's actual justifications for it. It's just, I was a little bit like, girl, what?
Yeah, at first I was too. And then I was like, yeah, but if your power is fire, you're like, maybe, you don't want a bunch of clothing.
That's your thing. The choreography here is great because we see pretty quickly that Judo, Pippin, Casca, and Guts are so good at fighting that they could kill these in a fair fight like that. It would be nothing to them. But these dudes are so good at creating advantageous situations that they aren't able to even fight back because the dudes are controlling terrain perfectly. So having Judo, Pippin, and even Griffith all participate in creating moments where they are able to fight despite the disadvantages is really good choreography because it lets our dudes be as strong as they are while still having them be in danger and needing to find a way out. I think that's brilliant, and it uses the terrain well. If you're choreographing a fight in writing or art or film or anything, and your fight is ambivalent to terrain, that fight could be better. Always consider terrain. They're not fighters or assassins, exactly.
When we leave and he sends the Black Dog Knight, whatever, out.
Yeah.
After them, and then they are doing the porcifying of many women, and then we see his backpack. I was like, how are we seeing his backpack right now? I thought we weren't allowed to show that. Oh, backpack, because in French it would be sakado, and that's what we see. In the shadows, you can literally see his sakado. And I was like, that's thought more than we were allowed to do in Japanese pieces. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, the limitations feel kind of weird. Like where you're allowed or not allowed to do
the
stuff.
edge with this one. I feel like he really skirted the edge here. This dude is so a dog, and then starts to metamorph back when dude walks in the room. So there's a bit of changing that takes place, but he's so a dog. And then he's got this inhuman human quality they keep talking about how they're not even people, they're feral and da-da-da, which makes me think that they're related to somehow some of the demoning or whatever. And then he turns sideways, and Squishies, what do we see? What do we see when he turns sideways? Do you know what we see, Drawk?
Nope.
A pointed ear.
Oh, okay. That's cool for him. Good job. Glad you have that.
So he also is now only the fourth person with a pointed ear in this entire thing, and he is another person. Yeah, it's upsetting when your breakfast gets ruined.
Granted, we've seen some demons without pointed ears, so it's not every demon.
Yeah. And so, once again, points for the ears mean something. We now have another person who is human, not human, or some kind of mixy thing. So far, there's 5, because I forgot about Puck. Sorry, Puck. Who could forget about Puck?
Does Moth Demon have pointed ears?
I don't know, but probably. But I expect all elves do, and all Moth Demon elves do.
Moth Demon has ears that it is hard to call pointed.
All right, I gotta tell you. I gotta tell you something right now.
You gotta do it. You gotta tell me.
I am so scared of the next section of this story. I can't even. I
gotta tell you something right now.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to read ahead and I will tell you what I need to for spoilers so that you are prepared. We have never had people tell us that that you should get spoilers. No one has ever said that before.
No, everyone is like, never spoil mama. Blah!
Unironically, I want to think about the fact that he canonically has a dick. Well, because I do think dehumanization is a part of this, but it does seem like he is dehumanization just in the form of a bestial sexuality instead of a human sexuality. It's very different. It also
feels more like the way that Guts feels, like he's a person in the world doing some person-y things. He just happens to have something going on. Mm-hmm. Griffith as well.
He's like partially demon. It's kind of like Zod. This might be his human form. Minute.
Maybe we keep meeting Zod in really cold times.
What?
Yeah, and it's not his fault that his penis crawls inside him. It's very cold for him. He's used to hell. Hell is very hot. He comes out into the regular Earth, and it's like, that might as well be Antarctica for him. So his penis just disappears. It crawls inside of him to stay warm. That's what's going on.
Yeah. All right, you get to start the top 5.
Oh, do I?
This is important.
We don't put Guts in though, right? We still are cheering.
No, Guts has his own. Guts has his own world.
Person I am going to put at the very top of the list today is Casca.
I mean, that's fair. Yeah, it's Casca. I debated. I want to. If I got it in my court, I considered Charlotte because her betrayal of her dad is why we got this far and very important to the series.
Okay.
I even briefly considered Rickert. I briefly considered Griffith because Griffith, I think, is so integral to this part because it's amazing how much he can do with so little presence and so little ability to act. I think it really
Are you putting him at number
shows
2?
the weight. No, I am putting Judo, and it's not actually just to bug you. Let me explain for the people who don't hate Judo.
You're making Judo number 2?
Let me explain why. This isn't about you. Let me explain why. I've come to realize that Judo is a character who recognizes emotional weight better than basically anyone. Whenever someone is struggling with someone and acting emotionally, without telling them, hey, you're being emotional, he gives space for someone to step out and for him to take over. When Judo has a solution, Judo just provides it. He is a perfect support character. He shows up, he helps. And the moment that sold it for me, I was like, he's like a number 4. The moment that sold it was in the final bit of choreography where Judo notices the sparks, then throws a knife, notices sparks again, creates sparks, sees where the guy is, and kills him, gets Pippin to prepare, times it perfectly, knowing the timing of their attacks, and lets everybody else fight. He's not the best fighter, but he's so good at what he does and acts so perfectly as the guy who just lets everyone else be their best. He finds the exact moment that every other character can act and creates it.
Can I just say retribution for Charlotte? Judo has one moment in this entire fight where he does anything of value, and it's that moment. And just recognizing that he does things is whatever. Like, yeah, are you maybe right about who he is? Sure, but that's over a long breadth of time, not in this particular area. He also
recognizes that Casca and Guts are about to have an emotional conversation because Guts is letting his feelings for Casca cloud things and is like, we can't separate our strongest fighters. Too bad.
You know how I feel about Charlotte, and let me tell you, that chick should have been number 2.
I love
She's
Charlotte.
the only reason we get into the castle. She doesn't just go against her disgusting king father. She tells him how to get in there. She clears space and she makes it possible. She leads them through.
Can I tell you
Ugh.
that I was going to put her number 2 if she hadn't have screamed. And then I was like, the scream, look, I agree. I said it myself that tactically, if your idea is you feel like you need to come along, it's the best thing you could do. The scream is why she's not number 2 for me. That's
Even
why.
with the scream, I still think that little trumpet should have been number 2. She is,
All
she
right.
did so much. So I'm going to make her number 3 because she was robbed. I was robbed, says Charlotte. You were, Charlotte. You suck, but you were robbed.
Can we just say Pippin number 4? Nice and easy. We're going in order today.
Pippin should be number 4.
Pippin did great. Good job, Pippin. I don't know. I love Pippin in this section. He's such a small presence, outside of size. But he's so
love
good.
Pippin.
He's great.
I just think Pippin rocks. He's my favorite character.
I also, because you're not going to pick him, honorable mention to Rickert. You did your best, buddy.
You don't know that I'm not going to pick Rickard.
All right, go for it. Just go ahead and don't pick Griffith.
I'm going to pick... Oh, yeah, it's got to be Griffith. In fact, Griffith should have been higher. In fact...
I want Pippin to be above Griffith this one time.
Ew! You know what? Yeah, we'll pick Griffith here. But can we just admit that that's wrong? Because Griffith gave face.
We can change it. We can put Pippin below Griffith. I think we switch them. Yeah.
Griffith did more for the story with an eyeball than anyone else did with their whole freaking chest. Griffith
yeah, all right, switch them. Charlotte eye. Number 3, Griffith number 4, Pippin number 5.
Yes.
Honorable mention to Rickert.
Yes.
The Pippin fans are eating tonight.
Pippin rocks.
I love Pippin. It's just, you're right. Griffith manages to be a compelling character when he's an eyeball.
Eyeball!
He's so well written. It's crazy, guys. Like, I know we talk shit because he's evil. He's such a good character.
As an author, you're just like, I just want to write this character all the time. I nailed this character. And I bet you that's how he felt about Griffith.
Griffith is such an interesting, compelling, unique character. And I think so much of it comes from what if it was bad to be a protagonist, and it makes him so interesting. But it's not like just that idea is enough. You have to be a good writer to pull that off nearly as well as he's done.
Yes. No, he loves this character. His eye alone is enough to hold a plot together. I'm like, goddamn, you've written a character when you can just have them give eyeball, and all of us are like, ooh.
It felt like this entire section, every single moment was showing us Griffith's impact on other people. Griffith's impact on Charlotte, Griffith's impact on the king, Griffith's impact on Casca, on Guts. The fact that everyone thinks they are the most impacted, that they are the one who has this deep tie. And Guts is the only one who's right, it feels like, because that's what Griffith is thinking about, but he's only thinking about it because it's the one person he couldn't understand and expect and predict, the one person who wasn't the player he thought he would be, the one person who put him off his game. This series is so well written.
It is so well written.
Just remember, this is only the prologue flashback. That is weird to think about, that the prologue is not the prologue's the main story, and that this is all prologue.
Yeah, sometimes rehearing that it's a prologue flashback to Berserk actually hits different.
The same way.
Damn, this story. Okay, I hope I can move through this next shit, because the story is compelling. The story is great. It's not a hurdle, it's a cliff. Jesus, Kev Dog.
I love how Kev Dog was like, yeah, you can, maybe some heads up. It's a cliff.
And we are trying to do Berserk, the happy mode.
I think so much of the happiness we've found has been the happiness of, God, this sure is cool.
That's not where you think your happiness is going to come from.
No, but we take it where you get it.
Okay, so it says Berserk readers are called strugglers, but specifically only those who read this next section and choose to.
Really? This is where we earn the title of struggler, huh?
Oh my God.
So if you don't make it through, you're not even a struggler. Wow.
Yeah,
okay. We do our favorite monsters. There's a lot of monsters.
You know why that's such good news? Because I don't know if you've heard it. There is one sexy monster in this part.
Is it Skeleton?
Skeletor, man. He's bringing it on all barrels.
The issue is, if you take Skeletor, I gotta still be me. Yeah, the girl one. I like the girl one, okay? The moth is cool. It's gonna keep happening.
Everyone.
I have a bias towards women when it comes to characters in general. That's not going to change when there's monsters.
You've got issues. Then again, I can't say anything. This time because I picked a dude not because he was cool, but because he was hot.
Sexy Skeletor is your monster of the week. Here's the thing, actually. The thing about Moth Lady, I don't actually think Moth Lady is sexy. That I was just making the bit because I keep doing it. Moth Lady, I don't think is sexy. I think Moth Lady is just a cool fucking design.
I think in the next thing that Moth Lady is going to do some hurting of some people because people are
either
very
hurting
bad
of
for you.
people. No. There's two options. The way people are reacting is two things. Either it's going to do some hurting of some people, or it's going to turn out to be underage. The way people are acting could be either of those things.
Yeah.
Either way, I don't think the moth is sexy. I just think the moth has a really cool design. Lav hates when we do favorite minor character.
Oh, right. We do favorite minor character.
Favorite minor character is Anna the maid.
You know what? That was my favorite character. I love that chick. She was so freaking sparky.
All right, let's move on to joy or pain. What was your source of greatest joy? I think it might be what I'm drawing right now.
Yeah, that is my greatest joy. When he bursts through and he attacks Torture Bitch Dude and takes him out. That was my very, very favorite joyous moment.
My greatest joy was the moment where Guts says to Judo, yeah, it's dark this time, so Charlotte mistook Casca for a woman, and then Casca hits him in the face with the lantern. I think it was really funny. I think it's cute. I loved it.
Hey, what gave you pain?
The description of Griffith's torture. Whether or not I think he's evil, it fucking killed me. Holy fuck.
That was wild. I didn't expect to be like, oh no, poor Griffith. And yet here we were. I think what gave me pain though was seeing what it did to Guts. Like, I think it gave me pain, but the real pain for me was Guts' reaction
I think that's fair.
to the and less about Griffith's reaction and more Guts' reaction to his trauma. Will the next section break Mama's heart and soul? 90% said yes.
All right, guys, if we don't come back, if we cannot do another Berserk, if we come back and say Mama says I can't do it, I will gift 5 subs to the community. That is my oath. I will say, here are your apology subs.
I will also gift 5 subs then.
If you don't make it, okay. You guys get 10 subs if we don't. Guys, we're reading to Eclipse. Ooh, that's spooky. Eclipse end of chapter 73. That's some more chapters than we've had in a while. We've been reading very short sections. I'm excited to get some more chapters this time. All right, I think that's it. That's our closing segments, right? Wait, we have to thank a random patron. You ready? Pick a number 1 to 23.
Yes, I pick number 8.
These are our special squishies. Number 8. This is so appropriate and such a good name. You're going to love saying it. I'm going to send it to you and you can thank it because it's such a fun to say.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah, right? That's the one you picked?
Today we are thanking the gelatin skeleton.
Wait, did you just pronounce gelatin?
I'm not saying gelatin. I don't like it.
It rhymes.
Gelatin skeleton. I don't like gelatin.
What? But it rhymes.
Gelatin skeleton rhymes, and that's why they picked it, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But gelatinous is a better word.
Gelatinous is a better word, but it's not gelatinous. It's just.
So I'm going to say gelatin skeleton.
I'm going to say it correctly. Thank you, gelatin skeleton. That's so fun to say. How can you turn it down? Thank you, gelatin skeleton, for subscribing at the squishy tier. If you want to be thanked on a stream, you can join the crew tier, which has a limited number of slots. Or if you're a special squishy, you have a chance to be thanked every screen. Every screen has a chance to thank you.
Oh, we're doomed. We're doomed.
Team, we'll see you on the other side. And until next time,
I've been pain-free.
I'm Painkiller.
Squish on squishies.
It's been lovely talking to you. Thank you guys so much for being here. Hopefully it's not the last time. The reading Kaiju number 8 if we don't continue or something. Bye, everybody.